Should the page file be placed on the SSD or the HDD? I have read quite a bit about the placement of page files lately, researching my question, and have not found an answer specific to my question, so hopefully someone here can help. New system being built. Windows 7 Pro 64-bit 16GB RAM. AMD FX 8358 core processor. C drive, ALS only, Intel 331 20GB SSD. Currently has the page file on it. Also, have a WD2TB HDD which I will partition out for applications, and data as separate partitions. My question is about the page file being moved to the HDD to keep the SSD only for the ALS. Since the SSD has limited writes to each cell, the thought is to preserve the SSD by having the page file not on it. I generally set my page file to a fixed size equals RAM plus a little more. The plan would be to move the page file to either a separate primary partition on the HDD, or include it in say a data partition, again, on the HDD not the SSD. With the current configuration mentioned above, would I be better off leaving the page file on the SSD and not worry about the impact of constant read/writes to it, or move it to the HDD? What would be the performance hit moving it to the HDD? Is there a difference there, on the HDD, if it is in its own partition or shares with a partition with the data or less used partition? One last consideration is that AutoCAD is one program that will be used on this PC, not professionally, but in a learning environment.
You have two options really. Put it on the SSD for better performance from your page file. This will dramatically shorten the lifespan of your SSD if you are frequently writing/reading from your page file. Based on the amount of RAM you're running, you could potentially disable the page file in its entirety, or just hide it on the HDD. I'm running Win 7 Ultimate with 12GB of RAM, frequently gaming, Photoshop, etc., and I never hit 12GB. But even if I do, I tossed a small page file on my HDD to handle the case. It increases stability. Edit. Seeing that you're planning to use AutoCAD, you may want to think of investing in a bit more RAM, but definitely keep a page file around. RAM is cheap and you'll get far better performance keeping all of that info in RAM rather than needing your page file.
According to Microsoft's MSDN blog, put it on the SSD to get the best performance. Should the page file be placed on SSDs? Yes. Most page file operations are small random reads or larger sequential writes, both of which are types of operations that SSDs handle well.
I have been told that using an USB memory stick, USB 3.0 and of significant read/write performance, is the way to go. When the memory stick gets beat up or fails, just replace it. Saves the SSD. Disclaimer, I have not done this but will be going down this path real soon.
TL/Doctor. Accepted answer is somewhat good in 2023, so there are some things that need to be addressed. Specifically putting page file on HDD versus SSD issue, decreasing SSD lifespan, as well as the actual need for it on a system with enough RAM. So, recommendations are, always put it on the fastest drive you have and leave management to Windows. It will be fee and e. Full answer. I use my PC for work, entertainment, some social media and central storage and backup for all my other devices. Which means Microsoft Stack, Office, Visual Studio, SQL Server, Power BI, Python, MySQL and some other stuff, among others, AV editing software. It's not uncommon for my total allocated memory to hit 120 GB, and for various reasons, when it happened for the first time, Windows chose to put it all on HDD, giving me a lot of grief. My setup is long in tooth, but at the time I believed it should bear the burden well, as it is maxed out where it counts for this kind of work, and is definitely more powerful than laptop I work on the other 8 hours. It is being replaced with modern setup, though, now that I can afford it. It's Dell Precision T3620 workstation with i7 6700, 32 GB of RAM, 512 GB NVMe, 3x 512 GB SSD, 1x4 TD HDD, GTX 1066 GB. When I started experiencing stability and not enough memory issues a while back, I investigated and was shocked to see 96 GB page file on a spinner, of all things. Then I analyzed the details and pinpointed the biggest usage to Visual Studio and SQL Server. Eventually I freed some space on NVMe and moved page file there, but it did not solve all issues. Contrary to some opinions offered in various places on the internet, it was not more stable on a spinner compared to NVMe, but was significantly slower. Additionally, apparently 120 GB is the upper limit my W10 Pro can handle safely, even if it is, technically, only about 80% of max that my system is supposed to support, so I was forced to juggle services and I'm shutting down SQL Server whenever not in use. There is something to be said for systems with a lot of RAM, and for me this is at least 64 GB, but regardless, my upgrade will be 128 GB RAM, just to be safe. And with SSD, any interface, not being super reliable, in my experience, there is no real downside. To put it simply, with prices being more reasonable, I am prepared to have mine replaced even every year.
I fjaŭ vant to sub por de handel, prase consider subscribing.